All right. Okay. Once again, good morning. My name is Sharda Agarwal. I am the co-founder of Sepalika, a natural fertility clinic, along with Mahesh Jayaraman, who's also on this session. I can see a lot of familiar names. Some of you I have spoken to. Some of you I keep chatting with and exchanging messages on Instagram. Thank you so much for joining this session. The way I'm structuring it is like this. So although it's about diet, I want you to first understand how the body functions. So I'm going to talk about that. And then we'll get into the diet. So I've done a very short presentation. I'll take you through it. I will share my screen right now. Any questions, any thoughts that come to you, please just enter it in the chat box, because we're going to be muting all participants till I finish my session. And then I will unmute you. You're most welcome to ask your questions. You can raise your hand. You can type in your queries into the chat box. And Mahesh, myself, and the team will be here to answer your questions. All right. So with that, let me start my presentation. All right, so eating right in fertility. As we go on the journey to pregnancy, what are the principles that we should be following to as far as diet is concerned? And why is it that I'm doing this session? It's because, remember, food is the one thing that you put into your body at least 5 times a day. So that is something that we need to be absolutely clear about, because that is what influences how our health is and how we are. And I'm sure a lot of you know that Sepalika, we focus on building the foundational health of the couple. So getting this right is very important. Give me half a second. I think I need to shut the WhatsApp that's sitting on my computer. All right. I'm sorry about that one. Okay. All right. So first question. When any of you or any of us go to a doctor for a fertility treatment, usually your doctor will focus on the reproductive system. So it's the ovary and the uterus if it's the lady, and the gonads, the semen, and the sperm in case of the man, correct? That's what all doctors will look at. That's what they will examine. That's what where they will diagnose the issues are. And that's where their treatment will focus on, right? Similarly, if you ask them what hormones specifically they're looking at, actually their only focus is women's hormones and men's hormones. So women, estrogen and progesterone, yes, I have put their testosterone. It may come as a surprise, but women do produce testosterone. While the focus for men is testosterone, again, by the way, men also produce estrogen and progesterone. In fact, your testosterone comes from a mother hormone called pregnenolone. So both men and women have progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen. But this happens to be the primary focus of any doctor or any fertility experts trying to work with a woman who's on a conception journey. So while this may be so, unfortunately, this is an incomplete analysis, an incomplete diagnosis of a couple's fertility potential. Your doctor is actually addressing only part of the story. And why am I saying this? If you have heard me on my calls with you, many of you would already know what's coming up next. But this is what it is. This is a full set of hormones in a woman for fertility. And this is what every doctor, whether we are fertility doing it naturally like the way Sepalika is, whether it's a gynecologist, whether it's a fertility expert trying to do it through an IVF procedure, every single doctor must focus on all these hormones. That is the only way you will maximize chances of pregnancy. Okay. Now, while I'm calling this a set of women's hormones, please note this is almost identical even for men. Okay. Now, why am I saying this? And what is the connection of each of these hormones to your getting pregnant? Start with the brain. In the brain is the pineal gland, which produces melatonin. Melatonin is responsible for your menstrual cycle, as well as sleep. And sleep has a huge connect to fertility, because remember, it is only when you're sleeping does your body repair itself. So any repair work in the ovary, on your AMH, in the uterus is done during sleep. So you start there. The next set of hormones, this we all know, but all of us, none of us, or rather virtually most of us would not know, estrogen, progesterone, FSH, LH, the first signal begins in the brain, in parts of the brain known as the pituitary and the hypothalamus. Okay. Then is, of course, we all are aware, the thyroid hormones, but I can't, emphasize the importance of a thyroid hormones for giving you regular periods, for your follicular development, for ovulation, even for general menstrual health. Super, super important. It's the master energy producer in the human body. Then you have your adrenal glands. These are little glands that sit above your kidney. They are usually, we all know about cortisol, which is what happens when there's a stress response. But your adrenal glands, cortisol has a huge impact on your reproductive hormones. Adrenal glands produce DHEA, and I'm sure many of you know, again, very important for fertility. Then you have the pancreas. While all of us usually think of pancreas and insulin in the context of diabetes or even sometimes PCOD, remember insulin, glucagon, and blood sugar are all hugely important in determining how much of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone you have in your body. Okay, thymus, we would have heard of this only in the context of COVID, but thymus is a part of the body which is the center, the real center of your immune cells. So immunity is very critical in fertility, and that's what is done by the thymus. That primary job comes from the thymus. And then here's something I don't think you would have ever heard, okay? I'm looking at the intestines here. The intestine, bulk of your thyroid hormone, which is your active thyroid hormone, which is T3, is not produced in the thyroid gland at the base of the throat. So if your doctor has told you that your thyroid hormones are produced here, that is not correct. Bulk of your thyroid hormones are produced in what I call as a peripheral tissues, and a lot of it is sitting in your gut, which is why when you work with us at Sepalika Fertility, or you would have seen a lot of videos that Mahesh and I have shared, we focus so much on gut health because thyroid hormones are T3 especially is produced there. Your gut is also responsible for estrogen metabolism, which means that when you have an estrogen dominance or excess estrogen, it's very important to bring that, take it out of the body. In fact, I've not highlighted here, but your kidneys play a big role. Okay. Then, of course, this is what we all know, and this is what every doctor focuses on, ovary and the uterus, because that's where the ovaries is where the actual estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are made, and the primary activity happens there. Okay. Now, all doctors focus only on the ovary and the uterus. Whereas if you come to Sepalika, and this is something, if you have heard me speak, I will say, fertility begins in the brain. It's a north to a south process. The southernmost part are your reproductive hormones, but to improve your chances of fertility, you have to start looking at the brain and every other organ and all the hormones that these organs produce, because they all impact pregnancy. So when we create a diet plan, when you are going to be looking at your own diet plan, by the way, at the end of this, I will share with you basic diet principles that you can follow. When you look at your diet plan, remember, you have to work towards strengthening all these hormones, not just focus on eggs, not just focus on AMH. Okay, so let's look at what do these hormones need to stay healthy. So on the left-hand side of your screen, I'm sorry, if you're seeing this, please put your phone from a mobile, please place it in a horizontal or a landscape mode. It will be easier to read the text. On the left-hand side, you can see all the hormones that I've listed, whether it's the reproductive hormones like estrogen, progesterone, thyroid hormones, adrenal hormones, pancreatic hormones like insulin and glucagon, or FSH, LH, again, reproductive hormones. And look at what they need. Look at what you see on the right-hand side. The only thing that you're seeing are vitamins, B vitamins, D vitamins, vitamin C, minerals like zinc, iron, selenium, iodine, copper, food groups like fats, proteins. So it's all in your diet. If you want to work on your hormones to build your fertility, foundational health, it's all about the food that we're eating. And that's why this focus on this session, and if you ask me, the single message that I'd like you to take away from this session is to think about how important that the food that we eat every day goes to help us get pregnant. Okay. So if you look at what are the typical issues that women or couples face Usually, number one I hear is low AMH. Number two I would hear is hyperthyroid. So they're always on some kind of medication for thyroid. There are abnormal levels of FSH, LH, prolactin. People have period issues. There is a male issue of male infertility or sperm health issues. Women come with PCOS, or there is diabetes, excess weight. So these are all what I hear. And these are all typical issues that couples face on their fertility journey, right? So these are all the issues that they face. And when they go to a doctor, usually this is what the doctor will tell you to do. If it's a period issue, usually in PCOS, she will put you on birth control pills. If you're suffering from low thyroid hormones, you're likely to be put on levothyroxine, Thyronorm. If you've got excess weight, start cutting calories. Let's put you on a keto diet. Really, really cut down on the amount of food. Let's get you into a calorie deficit. This is the language that you hear. And the primary intervention that the doctor uses is either follicular stimulation, uses hormone injections, sometimes IUI, and finally IVF. Especially if you're a lady who's been trying to conceive for more than a year, and the moment you hit the age of 32, the doctor tells you, time is running out, your clock is ticking, right? I can't see the chat box, but if this sounds familiar to you, please give your comments, please share your thoughts, your questions, and I will answer them. So it's a hormonal intervention that is done by an IVF. And sadly, I'm not saying this is not needed, but there is so much that you can do before doing any of all of this. And we have seen by intervening through dietary protocols and programs on nutrient supplementation, we're able to avoid a lot of what you're seeing on the screen. So isn't it much simpler? Isn't it gentler on the body? Isn't it easier on our mind? Especially because as women, we take the bulk of the brunt, especially the emotional brunt and the physical impact of any fertility treatment. And therefore, I think we all owe it to ourselves to ensure that we get our foundational health. When I say I also include the husband or the spouse in this, so we get our foundational health in order on our conception journey. Okay, so this is something that we would recommend should be completely avoided as a first line of treatment. Okay, our recommendation, use food as medicine. And I can't tell you how powerful it can be. Okay, so I thought I would share with you some basic principles over the next few slides. And then I will send you I will mail you the details of the diet plan or diet guidelines that you can follow. But these are the things that literally at the end of the session, you can start doing from today, right? Number one, if you ask me the first thing, Sharda, what should I be doing? Change your cooking oil. Either move to ghee. Ghee is our preferred choice, but I understand that a lot of homes, there are staff at home, there's a large family to feed, and ghee can become unaffordable, okay? Then it's cold pressed oils, so which in Hindi we call it as kachi ghani tel, but it's usually made from either wooden or steel presses using pressure to extract the oil. So whether it's groundnut oil, mustard oil, coconut oil, whichever part of the country come from, but cold pressed oils, please remove all these refined safflower, sunflower, soya bean oil, rice bran oil from your kitchen. I know they all talk a lot of health benefits. Why do I say no refined oils? Because every refined oil is beautiful to look at. So what have they done? They have removed the color, the murky, sometimes the murky look that a cold pressed oil will have. They've removed the smell because a lot of us don't like the smell. And so that it can stay for long in a retail shelf, in a kirana or in a grocer, they have to add preservatives. So oil is refined by using chemicals. Chemicals are hormone, or what I call as endocrine disruptors. The endocrine system is a hormone system. If you remember my first slide, I said it starts in the brain. They disrupt the normal functioning. So the number one thing that you can do, and probably the easiest thing you can do, is to change your cooking oil. Okay. Second one, have more ghee, have more butter, homemade butter, have whole eggs, not egg white omelette. Because fats do not make us fat, it's carbohydrates. Excess carbohydrates convert into sugar in the body. There is a limit to the amount of glucose or glycogen. Glycogen is a stored form of glucose in the body. There's only a limit to which the body can store. When it reaches that limit, it converts that into fat. So it is actually carbohydrates that make us fat. It's not fats, because fat are a far better and a more efficient source of fuel for energy. And the reason why I say this is because over the last 5 years that we've been running Sepalika, almost every woman will come to me and say, listen, I can't be eating the amount of ghee and butter and almonds and walnuts you're asking me to do because it will make me fat. I want to manage my weight. But what we don't realize is that every cell in the human body is made, the cell membrane is made of fat. If you go back to class 8 biology. So the cell membrane is made of lipids, of fats. So you need fats for good quality egg cells, good quality sperm cells, good quality uterine cells, good quality embryo growth. So if this is my second big takeaway I'd like you to do is embrace and make friends with fat. Now, I am not saying let's go with gay abandon and start eating namkeen and fried food. There are certain kinds of good fat, and there's also obviously you got to manage your calories, but that's what we do in detail on a proper fertility program. Third thing, this is where I would ask you to unmute yourself. But before you unmute, let me ask the question. I'm showing you 3 examples of homemade food, whether it's North Indian, South Indian, non-vegetarian food. Can anyone, you're most welcome to unmute yourself. Tell me what is wrong with this.
Quantity.
The amount of carbs is more.
Correct.
Too much of carbs.
Absolutely.
Absence of
Less
fiber.
vegetables.
Absence of fiber.
Vegetables.
Correct.
Lack of proteins.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All of you are correct. Even, in a non-vegetarian home, and that's the center picture that you see, a plate is still dominated by a rice or roti, right? So if I were to draw a line, you can see on the left-hand side are the pure carbs and see the amount of carbohydrates. All carbohydrates converted into sugar in the body. It's not just white sugar or mithai or dessert. Every carbohydrate converts into sugar. And if you remember earlier, I said there is a limit to which the body can store sugar. So it just converts it into fat. Okay. So if I were to ask you to change your eating principle, this is how your typical plate should look. On half your plate, 50% is vegetables. Now, if you can handle raw, you can add salads, but a lot of us cannot handle raw, so you make them into sabzi. I'm not particular what kind of sabzi it is. It can be a North Indian sabzi, it can be a kuttu, it can be a gravy, it can be an avial, doesn't matter. But half the plate should be vegetables, just pure vegetables. 1/4 of your plate should come from protein, either a vegetarian or a non-veg source, and only 1/4 will be carbs. Now, remember, when I say carbs, I'm actually meaning grain carbs. By the way, every food on this plate contains carbs. All your protein contains carbohydrates, all your vegetables contain carbohydrates, only fats don't contain carbs, okay? So I'm only saying limit your grain carbs. So at Sepalika, when anybody joins our program, we will never take people of any food groups, which is why, although I know people face fantastic success with keto, whether it's for PCOS or for weight loss, it is not something, Leon Sra, my head nutritionist, is sitting on this. Neither Leon nor I are great fans of keto because we believe that you should not take away a food group. This is not natural. This is not what we were meant to do. At least in the last 500 years, the body has not been used to eating it this way. By the way we're eating today, the kind of roti and rice is only in the last 50 to 75 years. If you ask your grandmother what her grandmother ate, it is not at all the way we eat today. Okay, but that's another story, and it's a very long story, so I'm not going to digress. I know we all have a time limit on this session. Okay, so as you can see, when I draw the line now, see how we limit the amount of grain carbohydrates and therefore limit the amount of impact that we have on insulin, the impact that we have on our hormones. Okay, in Maharashtra, which is where I live, we have a term called Shatapavli, which is literally walk 100 steps after every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Why? Because as soon as you eat, I know a lot of people will say, but can we exercise? This is not exercise. This is moving the body so that you allow gravity, you allow food to go down. You prevent the formation of what Ayurveda would say as vata, or gas, or buildup of the food, because you allow it to pass through your food pipe into your stomach, and you allow for far better digestion. So there is no weather issue, there is no space issue, you don't need to wear shoes. Even if you're sitting at the dining table, walk around it. If you're sitting in the office, just walk up and down your office cabin or in the common space. But 100 steps. And the biggest issue that I find is most of us have dinner, and after that, we straight go and sit in front of the TV, or we move from the dining table to a sofa to pick up our cell phone and start checking our messages, mails, and WhatsApp. And that's where the problem is. I have myself used something called a diabetes, a glucose monitor. And I have seen how the same meal, when I had it without walking and with walking, I can see how the blood sugar dropped after the meal because I walked those 100 steps. So when you walk 100 steps, you will prevent a spike in blood sugar. You will prevent any kind of insulin issues. You will ensure that you will reduce insulin resistance. That will ensure that you don't cause a testosterone spike. That will ensure you balance your hormones, which is important for your egg health and sperm health. So see how the connection happens. Okay. Hard, I know, but there are 4 W's that Leon will always tell on her call with our clients. White bread, white rice, white maida, and white sugar, literally like poison. Why? They're fantastic to taste, I know. They're really sweet. But all these have been formed by let's take maida. Maida is basically wheat, where you stripped the entire bran, the entire fiber and the outer part, and only taken the innermost part, which is pure sugar. There is a reason why nature made it that way, so that the fiber, not just the fiber actually, it has minerals, will help your body digest and accept that wheat. Now, when you remove that section, you're straight causing a glucose spike. Glucose spike is the worst that we can do to our health. So stay away from these 4 whites. If you're on my program, I will tell you to stay away from sugar of all colors as well. But that's again on the main program. But I think this is at least a great starting point for all of us. Okay. I can't emphasize the importance of it. If you remember, for those of you who joined late, I'm going to reiterate what I said in the very beginning of my session, how important the kidneys play in managing your hormone balance. Kidneys are important for washing out excess estrogen, okay, from the body. And for that, you need water. And we drink water, but we don't drink adequate water. I've put in a simple formula here. Take your weight, multiply it by 0.03. So if you're 50 kilos, 1.5 liters at a minimum. And if you have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, for every cup of tea or coffee you drink, you add 1 cup or 1 glass of water, because these are all diuretics. Water is extremely important for transporting all the nutrients that we eat. It's important for regulating your body temperature. It's important for ensuring whatever goes in and out of the cell happens through a process called osmosis. So if without water, you're affecting your chances of hormonal health, your chances of pregnancy and fertility. Simple things that can make such a big difference to getting pregnant. Okay. And then I thought I'd focus on specific hormone, foods that you can take for hormone health. You can see them here, but you see all the foods that you see, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. We're trying to, all these things are to focus on improving period quality. If you have an anovulatory period, ensuring that you're able to ovulate better, improving health of the sperm, remember, there is no food that contains progesterone, but there are some foods which can help the body produce its progesterone better. So for example, sweet potatoes, because they have beta carotene. Salt, please take away the white salt. It's sea salt, jada namak, kala namak, pink salt. Those are the salts because they contain sodium, potassium, chloride. Very important minerals, again, for maintaining what moves in and out of your cells. Millets are far better than rice and wheat only because they have lower GI or glycemic index. They are easier on your, especially if you have an insulin resistance issue. And I always call what you see on the bottom right is eggs. Eggs are a superfood. Contain choline, very, very important for embryo formation. Contain proteins, contain good fats. I mean, everything is great about eggs if you can have them. But in general, foods like these are what nourish us, are what build hormonal health for fertility. Okay. So, which is why when anyone joins in the Sepalika fertility program, one of the primary thing that we focus on, and I always tell people before they join the program, remember, we are going to be hugely focusing on your diet. We're going to be looking at what you're eating morning, noon, and night. We're not fussed on what kind of food is cooked in your home, North Indian, South Indian, you can use Italian, Mediterranean. That's not what we are focusing on, but we're focusing on you getting the right macronutrients and the right micronutrients so that you can, because you need three things for getting pregnant. Great quality egg, number two, great quality sperm, and number three, uterine health. That's it. And all our diet principles or macronutrient principles will be focused on giving you these three things. So we are going to be sending you an email on your daily eating guide. I'm going to stop at this point because I think there are a lot of questions. I know some of you, for those of you who came in late, no worries. You're going to be getting a recording of the session, so you can watch it later. But I think I would open up for questions now. All right. Okay. So I'm just going to scroll up and answer some of those questions. Is there a clinic? Yes, we operate only in India. Our fertility program operates only in India. Mahesh and I set up Sepalika back in 2018. And one of the things we said was women often don't get time to focus on their health because they're constantly either looking at, it's their career, it's the family, family's health, and their health comes at the bottom of that totem pole. So we said, we will come to you. You don't need to come to us. So we're set up as an only online clinic. We've worked with more than, I guess, 800 women over the last 5 years. And I think barring one, we haven't met anybody. And we've given periods, weight loss, pregnancies, and babies without having to meet because we don't do any surgery, we don't do any procedure, we don't do any IVF. Okay. Question on fibroids, cysts, endometriosis, right? Because I know these will come up and I can see that they're on my screen. Will a fibroid, a cyst, or endometriosis prevent me from getting pregnant? The answer is usually when we see where is that fibroid, what is the size of the cyst. Fibroids usually cannot be reduced through diet. They will often require a surgical intervention, but whether they kind of require any kind of treatment or surgical intervention, or will they prevent you from getting pregnant, we're only able to answer this when we see your reports because we're able to see the size, we're able to see the location and tell you whether that could be an impediment, right? There was a question on olive oil. Yes, olive oil is great for, you can put it on your salads. I always advise people, see, food has to be very simple. And in fact, I'll share on our Sepalika fertility page, I'm a complete kaamchor when it comes to my kitchen. I prefer not being in my kitchen, but I also am very keen that I eat good quality food. So I try and make it as simple as possible. So even if you're chopping cucumbers and carrots, just pour olive oil over it and it's fine, right? Alternative for eggs if you're a vegetarian. So, or rather alternative for proteins if you're a vegetarian. I can share the full list of protein alternatives, but all your dals, rajma, chana, paneer, which is made from hormone-free milk, sprouts, edamame, not soya. I'm not a great fan of soya, quinoa, sattu, chane ka dal, or all great millets have some amount of protein. So they're all good sources of protein for you. Are millets a good substitute for rice? Yes, they are. Actually, I've switched largely out of rice. The only rice I eat is a Kerala matta rice, red rice, black rice, brown rice. Millets are fantastic. You have to just cook them with a little more water and they need to be soaked before they are cooked. But otherwise, they taste just like rice. And whether you have it with sambar or like a dal chawal, it tastes like rice and you can't make out the difference. Okay. What is the alternative to sugar? Jaggery, because it is better, which you can add to your tea or coffee. You can also use stevia if you're able to tolerate the taste, because stevia tends to be very sweet. But stevia is, the difference between stevia and sugar, although both come from plants, is that stevia does not cause an insulin response in the body like the way sugar does. And that's why stevia is better. Okay. Broiler eggs. Yeah, that's okay. Filtered oil. Filtered is okay, but don't make it refined. So the difference between filtering and refining. Filtering is a physical process. Refining is adding chemicals. That's the difference. Okay. Low AMH. Okay. So let's understand, because I know a lot of people are facing this issue of being told your AMH is low and therefore you have to, IVF is your only option, or an assisted reproductive technique. What is AMH? AMH is anti-Mullerian hormone, which is produced in the body when the follicle is growing, in the early or the younger phase of follicular growth. Okay. Now, as the follicle grows, and your AMH will drop. So that's why AMH is never a standard number. It will keep varying. Now, if the AMH is low, and I'm sorry, by the way, I know that a lot of doctors, or even in the internet and Google, will tell you low AMH means low egg reserve, which means you have no choice but to go and for an IVF or an assisted technique. But remember, to get pregnant, you only need one egg. So whether you have 200 or 20 is not the issue. It's about what is that quality of the egg. Okay. Low AMH usually signifies that the follicle is not developing. The question that everybody or any fertility doctor should ask is, why is that follicular development not happening? There is something else that's happening in the body that's preventing the follicle from growing. And usually these are one of these things. Number one, there is inflammation in the body. Number two, there are nutrient deficiencies, like what I mentioned, whether it's B vitamins, whether it is zinc, whether it is macronutrients, there is a nutrient deficiency that is preventing follicular development. Number three, the thyroid hormone is possibly not functioning correctly. Okay. Number four, there is stress. Stress means the body will deprioritize. Deprioritize means it's lower its emphasis on reproduction. It will say there is no need for Sharda to reproduce. Sharda is highly stressed. I need to protect Sharda, preserve her life. So it will put my preservation above my reproduction. It will not allow my follicles to mature, or for an egg to be released. So, or it will be insulin or a blood sugar dysregulation. All these factors will prevent a follicle from developing, which means AMH gets affected. So the answer there is not IVF. The answer there is step one, find out which is the root cause and address it. That's the way I would do AMH via diet and help couples. Because let me tell you, majority of couples who come to us on our fertility program have low AMH. Almost all have been told to try for IVF because of that. And yet, in the last 3 years alone, 25 women who have been told by their doctors that they need an IVF or any kind of assisted technique have conceived naturally on our program and delivered naturally, is because we have gone to identify the root cause and address it. I have answered stevia. I mentioned sea salt, iodized salt, and role in thyroid. Yeah, okay. So I think that there are two questions. One is on iodine and the other is on cruciferous vegetables, because you would read on the internet that iodine and cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, and kale are not allowed for people who have thyroid issues. It's all about how much. Excess iodine or excess of cruciferous vegetables are a problem. But at the level that we are in, at the level that we don't really need, or rather suffer from severe iodine deficiency, or we suffer from issues on cruciferous vegetables. Also, iodine is highly volatile. So you really, by adding on that iodized salt, you're not getting adequate amount of iodine in your body. There are other ways to get iodine. How much exercise is important? What kind of exercise? You have to move every day. I distinguish between exercise and movement because all of us think exercise means I have to hit the gym, I have to have a trainer, I have to lift weights. Move every day with a huge focus on the pelvic area. We need to improve blood flow to the uterus. We need to improve blood, because all your reproductive organs are sitting in that pelvic area. So ensure that area moves, whether it's through yoga asanas, whether it's through squats, whether it's through walking, whatever, whether it's through a sport that you love to play because you hate to exercise. Movement is most important. Sitting is the worst thing that we can do for fertility. I would say you need to move for at least 30 to 45 minutes each day, and you need to raise your heart rate to a level that you're almost not able to speak, but you are still comfortable. That's when we know that the body is now burning all the glycogen, burning the fat, and getting all the hormones to be exercised. So that's what is my benchmark or parameter for exercising. Eggs have a heat. So yes, eggs can be heaty, and some people do not tolerate eggs. Eggs are also an issue because it can cause allergies. So this is why you need a more guided solution for diet. If eggs do not suit some people, we don't give them eggs, even though you saw my previous slide which said eggs are is a superfood. So I have to tailor make a lot of our diet plans based on somebody's diet sensitivity. I also know, by the way, that not everybody can eat millets because they eat millets wrongly. Millets are a very hardy crop. They require a lot of water. So if you're not hydrating along with eating millets, you can have constipation. The nutrient in the millets will not be absorbed. So that's why you need to, if you're sensitive to eggs, if you have food intolerances, it has to be accounted for. What I shared today are general diet guidelines. I do not know each of your individual sensitivities, but if I did know, and when we work with you, we will account for it, and create a very personalized diet plan. Seeds. How much seeds should be consumed? Usually about a tablespoon of pumpkin seeds and flax seeds can be consumed safely in a day. Can selenium be taken with levothyroxine? Mahesh, you want to answer that question?
Sorry, what's the question again?
Can selenium be taken with levothyroxine?
Yes, it can be taken, provided there is a selenium deficiency or your levothyroxine is not converting into T3 properly. Remember, levothyroxine is T4, and selenium allows the conversion of T4 into T3. So if you have a normal T4 level and a low T3 level, taking selenium will help you to convert the T4 into T3. But if you have autoimmune thyroid, sometimes selenium can cause a flare-up, so be careful.
Mahesh, we also want to cover, there have been questions on fibroids and endometriosis. Would you like to cover what our approach is to these two conditions?
Okay, so fibroids are generally a sign of estrogen excess, right? So in a woman, in the first 14 days of her period cycle, estrogen is meant to dominate. And once you ovulate or release an egg, then progesterone dominates. In women who don't have regular ovulation, estrogen becomes excessive because it acts in the second half of the period as well. And just like estrogen is meant to grow the inner wall of your uterus or endometrium, if it runs unchecked, it can grow fibroids there as well. Endometriosis as well can be deposits of excess estrogen inside the uterine cavity. So if you have that, then using diet, what Sharda was showing, many of the seeds, etc., to rebalance your hormones so that estrogen is lesser and progesterone can be regularly secreted, that can help. However, we have not seen any treatment till date that truly shrinks or removes completely fibroids which are in centimeter sizes. Till they are still within 10 millimeters or so, we have seen some fibroids being able to shrink. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. With endometriosis, endometriosis can prevent your conception efforts. That does require medical treatment. I have not seen only diet being able to influence endometriosis in somebody in whom conception is being prevented. Symptoms can get better, but conception requires that you need actual treatment of endometriosis.
Thank you. So there's somebody is asked saying that recurrent miscarriages can diet help. So the way we approach miscarriage is that, by the way, we do have a lot of people or a lot of our clients who've come with a history of miscarriages, worked with us, and then conceived naturally. So the first thing that we do is to try and understand why is that miscarriage happening? Is it because there seems to be the root cause is really, or rather not the root cause actually, is it that there seems to be a quality issue with the sperm and with the egg? And therefore, even though they fertilize, it's not able to take it to a successful pregnancy. Is there something in the uterus, the uterine health is not strong enough? So for example, is there a suppression of thyroid hormones, because that's what is hugely important in your implantation. Are there other issues, like is there a progesterone issue? So these, we try and identify what is creating or causing this miscarriage repeatedly in the lady. Usually miscarriages happen in the first trimester. By the cause, we address it, and yes, diet plays a big role. But in addition to the diet, remember, because miscarriage is a serious issue, food alone is not sufficient. We have to supplement with micronutrients. We also have been using Ayurveda fantastically and very successfully in helping women who come with a history of miscarriage, and we use acupressure. So diet plays a big role because it's, as I said, it's the one thing that you put into your body 4 or 5 times in a day. But we add each of these other things, and all 4 of them have helped us, helped a woman overcome that issue of miscarriage and have helped her get to a successful pregnancy. How do we join the Sepalika fertility program? I will have someone from my team put it here, or we may have already put it, I can't see, but we do have a number which we'll share with you. Even we send it to you on our email. You can connect with us and then we'll tell you the details. Should we stop taking thyroid tablets? We don't advise anybody to stop any medicine cold turkey. You can't stop anything immediately. This is also not, I can't, it's not responsible on my part to give you medical advice on whether to have it or not. But usually when somebody joins our fertility program and they're on medication, we have 2 goals. Number 1 is to see how can we reduce the dosage of that medication. And number 2, can we get them off that medicine altogether? But that's a gradual process. It requires us to understand their lab test reports. It requires to understand the clinical symptoms. Then start with these interventions, and then slowly over time, ensure we take off the medicine and we teach the body how to do its job. So remember, when you're taking a thyroid medicine, like a Thyronorm or a thyroxine, when you're taking a birth control pill, basically what is your doctor doing? He or she is telling you, hey, Sharda, listen, your thyroid gland is not producing its own hormones. So we're going to give the hormones from outside. Or, hey, Sharda, your ovary is not producing estrogen and progesterone in the right quantity at the right time during the cycle. So we're going to give it externally in the form of a pill. When you come to Sepalika, we say, hey, Sharda, you're not producing these hormones. We are going to teach your body to produce on their own. We're not going to give them from the outside through medicines. So there is no medicine or hormone that we're giving. Instead, we teach the body. We provide the body raw materials. So in the case of thyroid, the raw materials that are needed are B vitamins, vitamin D, iron, zinc, selenium, copper, proteins. Okay, this is what we will provide as a raw material. Teach your thyroid glands to produce their T4. Ensure that the conversion from T4 to T3, and that's active or free form of T4 to free form of T3, which means gut health. Because if you remember early part, I told you, bulk of your T3 is being produced in your intestine, and therefore reduce your dependence on a thyroid medicine. Okay. So to improve AMH and how do I improve my endometrium thickness is what I mentioned a little earlier. When AMH is low, when the endometrial thickness is not happening, it is because of either there's a nutrient deficiency, either the thyroid hormone is functioning suboptimally, there is a blood sugar dysregulation, there is an insulin resistance issue, there could be inflammation in the body, there could be stress, adrenal glands are in overdrive. Any of these can cause low AMH. Any of these could be contributing to poor endometrial thickness. Which of these we examine and then we address it, right? With diet and exercise for a PCOD patient, can you help conceive? We have had several of our patients who have come to us with a history of PCOD and have conceived with us using our program, which is diet, vitamins, Ayurveda, acupressure, and lifestyle, including exercise. In fact, we started the fertility program. We were first a PCOD clinic. And then we figured when we were treating someone for PCOD, they conceived on our program, even though it was not the intention. That's when we realized when you do core work, when you try and address why is that period not happening, or she's getting a period, but is that period ovulatory or anovulatory? Address that, you're able to help her get pregnant.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I had an ectopic pregnancy in August month. So it's been approx 5 months now. But what is happening at the time of ovulation, I have pain near my belly. So, like, is it the similar? Because at that time also I had the same pain, but now this occurs only around ovulation, very minute pain it is. But is it the same, or what steps I should take to fix that?
See, ovulation is a time when there's a change in hormones, right? And change in hormones will cause symptoms around ovulation. There is cervical mucus. You will feel discomfort. You may feel pain. Some women feel nausea. So these are all symptoms of ovulation. And very often, in fact, if women will, when those who are tuned into their bodies will say, "I know I'm ovulating." They don't need any other system of tracking. Okay. Now, whether your specific pain is coming because of just ovulation and it is normal, or because it is coming from some other issue, I don't know, whether like an infection or something else, I will be able to answer only after we take a look at your reports. But we're happy to do a consult if you'd like to.
Hello, ma'am. This is Nitya
Hello?
here.
Yeah.
I have a question. I recently had a laparoscopic cholecystectomy, and before that, I had 2 miscarriages. So, will that impact my conception? And what is your advice to it? Because many of them say that it does affect the conception.
So a miscarriage, you're saying future conception, right?
Yes, yes. I'm talking about future conception. I'm just recovering after I had a laparoscopic cholecystectomy.
Okay. Mahesh, you're there. Do you want to answer this question?
Yes. So you've had a laparoscopic procedure done, and you've had a resection of the colon. Is it? Did I hear that right?
It's the gallbladder stones.
Okay. You had a cholecystectomy. Okay, got it. All right. So if you've had only the stones removed and the gallbladder is still intact, then you should be fine. We have found in the past that where there has been removal of the gallbladder on account of stones, such women do not produce sufficient quantities of bile. And if you don't have enough bile, you're unable to produce cholesterol well. And one of the things that is not known to many women is that all fertility hormones are created from cholesterol. So if you have a gallbladder removal, you may not be able to produce hormones well. To that extent, it can impact it. If the stones were removed and the bladder is still intact, then
So
that
I
shouldn't
got the
be.
gallbladder removed.
You've got the gallbladder removed. So then it's important for you to ensure that you get the proper lipase enzymes dialed in. So again, this is something that is a little bit more advanced when it comes to fertility work. So we've had exactly a woman with a similar case who went through many rounds of unexplained infertility, ART treatment, etc. And when we looked into her case history, we realized that she did not have a gallbladder. And when she did not have a gallbladder, this was impacting her ability to create all the reproductive hormones. So when we gave her the right kind of digestive enzymes needed to create cholesterol, her body was able to create the hormones well. And with the other changes, she went on to conceive. I think her child is probably 3 years old, maybe 4 now. Yeah. So yes, not having a gallbladder can have a material impact on reproductive health. It is important to address that. But having a miscarriage, again, only increases the risk, and one needs to understand why the miscarriage happened. Again, for everybody's benefit, I'd like to just mention in Stanford University, there is a specific department called repeated pregnancy loss, RPL. And repeated pregnancy loss is constituted with multidisciplinary experts, and the data that they have found is quite staggering, and knowing it itself should make us all feel a little bit more comfortable. And the reason I say that is, according to their research, out of 100 actual conceptions that happen, means an egg and a sperm meet and an embryo is formed, out of 100 of those, only 30 of those make it to becoming live babies. Nature has a very high rejection rate for human beings. So 7 out of 10 conceptions actually do not make it to being live human beings, which means you should not feel unduly worried about a miscarriage. We should get to the bottom of why the miscarriage happened, but don't be disheartened. You certainly should be able to conceive again.
Hello, ma'am. This is Prachi.
Yeah, Prachi.
Yeah, I'm speaking from Dubai, ma'am. So, can you please support and guide overseas patients as well? I had a discussion with your team earlier. I know why you don't do that.
Yeah, I know.
But
Yeah, I know, Prachi. I'm so sorry. Because your name looks familiar. I know the team is me. I would have been communicating with you.
no, because I know I was in India for the treatment, and I have done almost whatever you name it. I have done. I have done laparoscopy, IUI, miscarriage, 2 IVF cycles, panchakarma, endometriosis, everything. I'm 35-year-old, and I can't be living without my family now in India. And this whole thing I did without my husband. So I did prani killing for it, medication, everything. So I really want to do something like this, but I need your support and consultation.
So Prachi, this is not just for Sepalika, but for any fertility program. What happens is that we have to do tests, scans, USG to know as we go along why somebody's not being able to conceive, or are we moving in the right direction, right? We also need to do, monthly progesterone tests, because that's my only indicator of your ovulating or not. Now, none of these tests, any prescription that I issue from here, and this is with any doctor, our prescriptions are not accepted outside India. Ginny, can you just mute everybody so that I can do this? I can answer this. Yeah, thanks. So unfortunately, when I give a prescription, and I've tried this, we did try it with international patients, and the international labs, doctors refused. They said, who's Sepalika and why are we wanting these tests? If you're not under my care, so I can't do it for you. That's where, Prachi, I'm stuck. Also, we don't know the kind of supplements that are available in Dubai or in any of the international markets like the way we do know in India. But we are trying to create an international program because we know we're getting a lot of inquiries from Indians, especially who live abroad. Hopefully soon we'll come back to you. Okay. I'll move on to my next question. Diet affect blocked fallopian tube. So yes, there is a lot of people have a blocked fallopian tube, but using diet, you cannot unblock a tube. At least that's not something that we have experienced. However, we have still managed to help a lady with one single tube blocked using our treatment protocol to get pregnant. But I can tell you, it's not easy. It takes time. This particular lady actually probably took the longest. She had 2 ectopic pregnancies and a blocked tube and PCOD. It took us 18 months, but she just stayed with us. She said, I don't care, and I will work with you. And we managed it. But otherwise, it's hard to unblock a tube with just diet. Okay. How many eggs in a day can you consume? Usually 1 to 2, unless you're an athlete or you're somebody who's got very strong digestive fire that you're able to take it up to 3. How many teaspoons of oil can we use when one is overweight? There is no general number. We have to calibrate it based on what is your BMI. In general, what kind of weight reduction do we want to bring down? Because remember, when you're overweight or when your weight is in excess, and I define it for pregnancy as anything above 25, it becomes hard because insulin resistance happens, metabolic issues come up inside the body, which in turn raises levels of testosterone, can impact production of estrogen, progesterone. So one of the first things that we have to do is to bring down BMI to a more acceptable level. Alternatives for white rice, brown rice, red rice, and all kinds of millets. Should our diet be based on the phases of the menstrual cycle? Good question. So yes, ideally it should be, because you can do this intuitively. You know when you're ovulating, you will know when you're through different parts of the month. I'm sure you've felt it yourself, right? When you're feeling tired, when you're feeling moody, when you're feeling lethargic, it's a sign of the body telling you. So therefore you have to calibrate not just your diet, but also your exercise or your physical activity patterns. It is detailed. If you're interested, please WhatsApp us on 9867337112. 9867337112, and I will send you a guideline on how to eat and exercise during your, to phase it, time it to your cycle. Okay. What millets?
Sorry to interrupt. Can you just post that number on the chat box? Thank you so much. I highly appreciate that.
Yeah, done.
Thank you.
Okay. What kind of millets? There are several kinds of millets. I think the one that we usually recommend that you start with, Leon, correct me if I'm wrong, is barnyard millet. You can start, I would say start with, the way to eat millets is this. First of all, millets have to be soaked, ideally at least for a couple of hours. They have to be cooked with adequate water. And they require far more water and far longer cooking time than rice. And you have to accompany it with enough amount of drinking water. Otherwise, millets are quite useless. There are some wonderful sites online which have fantastic Indian recipes. It is amazing the amount of recipes that you can get. Are very, very simple. So please Google. I'm not particular on what kind of cuisine you eat, but it's all available online. Okay. Let me scroll up. Sorry, I just lost in the process of typing out. What is TSH, T3, T4 to conceive? First of all, TSH is only a thyroid stimulating hormone. Most people come to us saying, my TSH is normal. Why am I not having a baby? TSH is not an indicator of active thyroid hormone. Active thyroid hormone is free T3. Okay. So you have to measure free T3, free T4, and TSH. There are different norms. If you're interested, I don't want to take up the time because I'll have to start explaining this whole concept. In fact, I think this evening, I'm releasing a video on why a normal blood test report does not mean everything is normal and you can get pregnant. It is not an automatic conclusion. So please watch out because I'm going to be covering thyroid hormones as well in that video. Okay. Facial hair. Okay. Someone who is asking, I'm overweight, I've got facial hair, I want to improve fertility. What do I do on the diet? Diet can play such a big role. But remember, facial hair takes a long time. We have seen it takes us at least 6 months to see significant changes, but you can lighten it, you can reduce the growth. We have to, basically, the facial hair is happening because of excess androgens or male hormones. We have to work on your diet to improve insulin sensitivity, prevent the conversion of testosterone to DHT, and improve your overall macronutrient balance. But yes, you can do it with a diet. Try and follow the principles that I will share with you after this call. I'm sure it can help. But otherwise, we have a PCOD program, or we have, if you're trying to conceive, a fertility program where we will be addressing this. What AMH is considered a low level? Mahesh, you want to answer this?
Okay, so from an optimal fertility perspective, the optimal ranges that we look for are 2.2 to 4, 4.5. We do get patients who are between 1 and 2.5, and we still consider that suboptimal but not low. Anything under 1 would be considered low.
Thanks. Dolly, yes, a lot of traditional sugar, so much better, like bura, khan, shakkar. And I think they're so much better than having white sugar. Because remember, white sugar looks fine, but remember, do you know what? They use chemicals to bleach that sugar, and we don't want those chemicals getting into the body because they disturb your hormone balance. So in an ideal situation, avoid sugar. If you cannot, please switch to jaggery or to local forms of unrefined sugar. Okay. After keto, I am not able to lose weight. That is because there are certain other hormones which are preventing weight loss. It's not just about, the beauty of keto is that it's able to reduce the amount of carbohydrates, and therefore your insulin impact. But insulin is not the only hormone impacting weight. There could be a thyroid hormone issue, and that does not get addressed effectively by keto. So we have to find out, get down to the root cause as to why you're not conceiving even after the keto diet being practiced for a long time, and then address it. We've done it on our program. What is the role of vitamin D? Huge. It's only called a vitamin, but actually acts as like a hormone because it is important for every function of the body to give you regular periods, for ovulation, to improve the health of all your hormones. It's like what we call is like almost like a mother hormone. So we take vitamin D not just up to normal levels. Again, this evening, my video where I say that if you're at 30 or 35 vitamin D, the doctor will say you're normal, but that's not enough for fertility. And on Sepalika, we want it to be anywhere between 50 to 75. That's what our experience has told us improves fertility chances, and we're able to help couples. So that's where we would take it. Okay. Iron-rich foods, lots of them: spinach, beetroot, sweet potato, a lot of your dals, green leafy vegetables all have iron. The only thing I would ask you to do is to absorb iron, you need to have vitamin C. So ensure that you always take vitamin C in the form of nimbu or lemon or avla or gooseberry to improve the absorption of iron in the body. Name some Indian medicines for vitamin D, B12, and folate. So usually good brands, vitamin D is Arachidol, you get it at a local chemist. Vitamin B12, folate, look up a brand called Palak Notes or Unived. They're both available on Amazon. Recurrent miscarriages, I have addressed this, Darshan, already earlier. We do have a lot of our clients who come to us with recurrent miscarriages. We have helped them conceive, but we do that by figuring out what is causing that recurrent miscarriage. Why is that embryo formation or implantation not happening? And again, I know I'm sounding like very repetitive, but it is only usually one of these things. Number one, nutrient deficiency, either macro or micronutrients. Number two, poor thyroid function. Number three, toxins in the body, the liver and the kidney being overwhelmed and not being able to process or remove excess toxins, including excess estrogen from the body. Number four, stress levels. Usually, or number five, insulin resistance and blood sugar dysregulation. We have found beyond this, we're not able to find out anything. Adrenal glands, of course, which is included in the stress part. So these have been the 5 common themes for recurrent miscarriages, for couples unable to get pregnant despite trying for so long. And when we address this, we're able to help them without them having to go for IUI or IVF, even if you're in your mid-30s or in your early 30s. Okay. How can you get B12 through food? B12 usually is available in dairy products. So milk, butter, cheese, eggs, animal products, not dairy, sorry, animal products, meat, fish, all contain B12. If you're a vegetarian, usually as vegetarians, we tend to drop our, we can see that it's lower in us, in which case you will have to supplement. How can we control hypothyroid? I have done, Spandana, a video on hypothyroid on our Instagram page. Basically, hypothyroid or thyroid hormones require a certain set of macro and micronutrients. Number one, you have to increase your protein intake. Number two, B vitamins, B6, B9, B12. Number three, you have to increase vitamin D in the body. Number four, zinc. Number five, complex carbohydrates, not simple ones like white rice or maida. So, and lots of vegetables. So this, I would say, is the basics, right? And then what prevents thyroid hormones or what also causes hypothyroid is stress, or poor sleep. So these are the things I would advise to improve your hypothyroidism. ESR, yes, elevated ESR is a sign, usually is a sign of inflammation, but we often have to look at it in conjunction with other inflammation markers, like homocysteine, like CRP. So we need to see an ESR number in conjunction with other lab parameters to say, is it just inflammation or infection? What is causing it? Okay. Are we allowed to dance? Of course, you're allowed to dance. If you ask me, dance not just is about excess. Oh yeah, sorry. I know in the context that you're asking, because somebody else has asked this. A lot of doctors tell couples, if you're trying to get pregnant or if you've just had intercourse, do not exercise. It is a myth that the sperm will come out. because you're exercising. It doesn't work that way. The body is a beautiful mechanism. It knows how to hold things. Exercise is actually important for improving blood circulation, for helping the egg and the sperm to fertilize, and for that fertilized embryo to go and implant itself. So please exercise, please dance, please move the body for a healthy pregnancy. Cycling is good for fertility. Is it safe to eat egg yolk? Yes, it is safe to eat egg yolk. The only two reasons where I would not advise eggs is raw eggs. Please do not use, because salmonella poisoning is very common. So do not eat raw eggs. Number two is eggs have to be hormone free. Eggs, chicken are always given chicken feed, which contains hormones. And therefore that in turn will get into your body and can create a hormonal imbalance. So ensure that you eat hormone-free eggs, no raw eggs, and women also can be intolerant to eggs. Egg is also one of them. While it is a superfood, it's also highly can be allergic. So if you're someone who's allergic, if you feel bloating, if you feel heaty, uncomfortable, don't eat eggs. Okay. How can we check if we have inflammation in the body? There are several markers for inflammation in a report. The most common will be insulin, will be CRP, will be homocysteine, will be triglycerides. So, but there are other markers as well, but these are 4 more common markers for inflammation. What to eat if we have PCOS? Priya, the PCOS dietary guidelines is almost identical to what I have said for fertility, because they're both starting with building good quality ovary, good quality eggs, asking for good quality periods, good flow, ovulation. So both for PCOS as well as fertility, the guidelines that I spoke about just now are what is to be followed. If for whatever reason you missed or you come in late, no worries. We're going to be emailing to all participants literally like a 1-pager on dietary guidelines that you could follow. Okay. Foods to improve sperm count and motility. So sperm requires, to improve sperm health, you need 3 or 4 of these. Number 1 is zinc, which you'll get through pumpkin seeds and spinach. Number 2 is vitamin D. Number 3 is coenzyme Q10, which usually comes in the form of supplement. Number 4 is omega-3. Okay. Now, how much of this to have will depend upon your blood test report. So I cannot give a general answer. The dosage, I will all supplement dosages, guys. On my Instagram videos, on this call, we would always say we don't give general guidelines, because we think vitamins are harmless, but excess of any vitamin or mineral is not good. So we have to look at a report to confirm. So, but these are the 4 nutrients. Selenium is another good nutrient for sperm health. Is there any relation between menstrual migraines and fertility? Yes. Mahesh, you want to answer this question? Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe Mahesh is not there on the call. But yes, there is a connection. Often menstrual migraines can be triggered because of excess estrogen in the body, and therefore there is a connection. Usually, in fact, we had a patient who struggled for a long time with her migraine, and we realized that it was migraine and PCOS. So we had to figure out why the migraine was happening, and it was coming from a hormonal imbalance. Address that, and then that's when she also got pregnant. So yes, there is a connection. What tests to do for nutritional deficiency? The tests are not unusual. All the tests that we ask for when anybody joins our fertility program are standard. So we ask for your standard CBC, we ask for vitamins, we ask for thyroid, we ask for liver markers, we ask for lipid markers, we ask for a kidney profile. We will also ask for women advanced hormone tests, usually done on the 2nd day of the period. And this is something I want to tell you. Do not do AMH, LH, FSH, prolactin must be done only on the 2nd day of the period. The numbers fluctuate and can be inaccurate on other days. Okay. Sperm test is the other thing that we get done. So they're not very different from what your doctor would ask you. However, the differences happen in 2 things. Number 1 is very often doctors only ask for TSH for thyroid or T3 and T4. they are not accurate predictors of thyroid function at all, at all. You need free T3, you need free T4, and you need thyroid antibodies. We found in so many cases, TSH normal, T3 and T4 normal or near normal, and we found that the lady has not been able to conceive because she had, an autoimmune form of thyroid, which was not detected because nobody done an antibody test. And more than 90% or 95% of your thyroid hormones are bound. Bound means they can't be utilized. So there's no point in looking at a T3, T4 number. Again, pretty useless. You need free T3 and free T4. What foods to maintain?
I have a question on this, ma'am. My TSH is free TSH is 5.0, and T3, T4 are within the range, and my antibodies are also like not positive. So should I consider it as a thyroid? Because my gynec doesn't say me to, like I have this hypothyroidism problem. My total TSH, T3, T4 are also within the range only.
Yeah.
So should I consider this as a thyroid issue? Because earlier, like last year, I had this issue. It was like 6.8, but after the diet you have suggested, it reduced to 5. This free TSH reduced to 5.0, and T3, T4 are normal. So
Yeah.
what should this be considered under?
Okay, so number one, only TSH is not an indicator of thyroid function. At TSH of 5, it's still telling me there could be a thyroid issue. Okay, T3 and T4, as I said, is not an indicator. I need to see free T3, free T4. That's one.
Yeah, that are also within the range only, which is that.
The second thing is, and I did say that I will, I'm putting out a video, so please watch Sepalika Fertility Instagram video this evening, but I'm just encapsulating it in a one sentence. Normal range that you see on a lab test report is not what we consider at all. For a normal range is determined by taking a certain population, taking their average and putting it. How many of those people are trying to get pregnant? Remember, when you're trying to get pregnant, when you're trying to create a new life inside your body, the demand that you make of the body is far greater. Thyroid hormones are the master energy producers. So your requirement for a thyroid hormone is far greater than somebody like me who's in her 50s. I'm past the reproductive age. I may not need as much, right? So don't go by a normal range, because if everything is if we accepted that, if our numbers were normal, why aren't we having a baby? Why is the pregnancy not happening? Obviously, there's an issue. When you come to Sepalika, we follow a branch of medicine called functional medicine or functional fertility. For us, the range is not, let's say, is much narrower. If a range is shown as normal on a lab test report as this, I will operate here. So when you tell me free T3, free T4, and my TSH are normal, I will not accept it. I will look at a much narrower range, because that's what allows me to ensure that your thyroid hormone is in optimal function, is in top gear. It's like being on top gear versus somewhere in the middle. That could be a reason. As I said, I don't have access to your reports. I don't have access to the numbers. We're more than happy to do a consult with you, but that's why we don't accept normal reports.
Ma'am, can I ask a question, please? Because I live abroad and I would be happy to, have a consult. I mean, for you to open doors for consultation. And I agree that here in abroad, they don't really take Indian tests, as a recommendation for us to go with. Also, I got my ANA tested. My rheumatoid factor was positive in India, but in Australia I got it tested twice and it was negative. So sometimes the reports can also be so glaringly opposite. My question is that my periods are really scanty, and I had a quite a late marriage, so I'm 38. I want to start trying, but I'm trying to lose weight first. But my periods are really scanty. I'm afraid I might be perimenopausal. I have hypothyroid, and I'm on medication since last 4 months only, because I was also in the classic 5 range, and no doctor in India ever prescribed me. But when I came here, my reflexes had slowed down and I was feeling very fatigued, extremely fatigued. And that's when the doctor decided to put me on TSH 50 levothyroxine, but he refused to do my free T3, T4. So yeah, I don't know. So have you helped any perimenopause? I'm not sure if I am, first of all, but my periods have gone really scanty.
Yeah, and I'm 38. So
yeah, the answer is a yes and a no. I have seen women who come to us. A lot of women in nowadays menopause is setting in by the mid-40s, and therefore they get perimenopausal a few years earlier. Okay. Now, in your specific case, where the period flow has dropped, is it a sign of perimenopause, or is it a sign of a nutrient deficiency or a thyroid underfunctioning, which is preventing the body from creating the hormones to give you a healthy period? See, a healthy period should be ideally around 3 days and a good flow. So if that does not happen, your ovulation will not happen, egg release will not happen, follicular development does not happen. Now, whether it is coming because the body generally is moving into perimenopause phase, or whether it's not coming because basic nutrients are missing, B vitamins, D vitamins, thyroid hormones are missing, protein, rich diet is missing, I am not able to answer that. We'll have to do a consult. We'll have to look at your reports. Only then I'll be able to tell you the answer. But I understand when you move from labs, the reports can vary. Okay.
Yeah.
But you see, that is where somebody like us is going to be sitting and looking. We look at multiple reports. See, that's why we take a long time. Anybody takes a consult with us, we spend at least an hour before we come on a consult with you. Because I look at, I have clients who send us 30 reports. We have to look at all of them, trace patterns, and then tell you. Looking at a single number, even for blood sugar, by saying that, you got your fasting blood sugar is 95, and therefore your normal is not correct. Any conclusion, a good doctor will arrive at a diagnosis, not just of fertility, whether it's for cholesterol, whether it's for blood sugar, by looking at multiple parameters or by tracing patterns. And that's how I would do it in your case. So to cut a long story short, whether it is perimenopausal or whether it's coming from just low, I'm not able to at this stage, but it is possible it's not perimenopausal either.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. I know we are way past 8. What can cause LH-FSH ratio? Yes. So usually LH-FSH ratio, it goes haywire because if you remember my original diagram, I said LH and FSH, the trigger begins in the brain, the hypothalamus and pituitary, and then them signaling to the ovary to produce to release the LH and FSH, and that causing the follicular development. Again, coming from an imbalanced estrogen and progesterone, which can be addressed, which we have done in our PCOD program and in our fertility program through diet, vitamins, and sometimes we use Ayurveda as well. Is cycling good for exercise? I did answer that question. Does a polyp in the uterus need to be removed to get pregnant? It only depends if the polyp is preventing the pregnancy from happening. Your gynecologist would be able to advise you. Kiran, your question on actual tests to be done for fertility, I have just spoken about it a while ago. If you missed it, we will share the recording, and I will also create a video which we can put up on our Instagram page. I have not got a period for 3 months due to medical interventions. I recently had spotting. A spotting is not a period unless the regular flow follows it. Sometimes spotting can happen just because there's a hormonal fluctuation. And you're telling me that you had medical interventions because of a follicular study. A medical intervention, if it's hormonal intervention, can trigger spotting, but that may not be a full proper period. Is intermittent fasting healthy? Good, because we are doing diet. Intermittent fasting is fantastic because it gives the body, intermittent fasting is basically periods when you don't eat. Digestion is the single largest consumer of energy in the body. So when you don't eat, you give the body time and to do other jobs. Number one, most important, is repair. Repair of all your hormones, repair of your uterus, ovary, and a man's sperm health. Okay. So it is good to go for certain periods of time without eating. How long should that intermittent fasting be is the question. If you're somebody who's got very high BMI and you want to lose weight and you've got severe insulin resistance, the longer you fast, the greater will the body start. It will exhaust all the sugar reserves and tap into fat and burn the fat for energy and therefore bring down the insulin resistance. And that usually happens when you do 16 hours of fasting. But I know that can be long, it can be hard. It can cause acidity in certain people. It can make us hungry and angry, which is why we do it in a guided version. You have to help somebody do it. However, my advice is, whatever is a gap between your dinner time and your morning chai or whatever is the first thing that you have, try and increase that gap slowly. Make it, first week, increase it by half an hour. Next week, increase it by another 15 minutes. Slowly and gradually keep increasing this, and I can tell you what an impact that you will see. Don't make it too sudden, because that will worsen, put your body into stress, and stress will trigger a hormone imbalance, which is exactly the opposite of what we're trying to achieve. How do I improve LH and FSH ratio? Again, we can do it through diet. I'll send you the diet guidelines. Cut down on the sugars. We have to add certain nutrients, but that I'm not able to tell you unless we work with you and I'm able to see where you're, where the issue is. But basically, we need to get the estrogen and progesterone into balance. Does age affect fertility? I will turn 34 this year. Okay. When your peak fertility, peak hormone health happens when a woman is in her 20s. And then there's a dramatic drop in 30s, and there's an even more dramatic drop in the 40s. Does it mean that a woman who's 40 or in her mid or late 30s cannot get pregnant? Of course not. There are enough and more evidences we see around ourselves who get pregnant. What is important are just two things: foundational health of the lady, foundational health of the man. What do I mean by foundational health? Thyroid health, your diet, your digestion, your gut health, your liver health, your kidney health, your cholesterol, your blood sugar. If all those are good, even if you're 34, you can conceive. And please do not do not panic when doctors tell you you're running against the clock, your AMH is dropping, your egg reserves are going, you're not going to get pregnant. You need only one egg, but you need a great quality egg. But you need the entire body to support your pregnancy, as you would have seen in my first few slides. Okay, antibody positive, can I conceive? We have to bring the antibodies down, because it's likely that the thyroid antibodies could be attacking parts of your body and preventing conception. Liver function, how is it related to pregnancy? Great question. The liver does two big things. Number one, the liver is the primary detox organ in the body. Okay, so any rubbish that we subject our body through, whether it is stress, whether it is eating food from Swiggy, whether it is eating chole bhature, whether it's going out, whether it's eating just excess quantities of carbohydrates, whether it's eating when we really don't need to eat, the liver they all converted to toxins, whether it's having antibiotics, whether it's going on hormone pills, whether it's going on birth control pills, simple medicines like even headache medicine. Okay, these are all things that the body, they produce toxins. The liver's job is to detox. And the liver is what is going to detox excess estrogen from your body, without which pregnancy can get affected. Number two, liver produces cholesterol. I don't know how many of you know, or how many of your doctors have told you, cholesterol is the hormone from which estrogen and progesterone and testosterone is produced. So if the liver is not producing cholesterol, you're not going to be able to produce good quality estrogen, progesterone. Liver, number three, liver is what produces your fat soluble vitamins, which is vitamin D. And therefore, without a proper functioning of the liver, you cannot get these vitamins. Number four, liver is what processes triglycerides, which can cause inflammation and can cause insulin resistance. Again, no, if you don't have a proper functioning liver, you have an issue. So here's what I tell everybody on various, whenever I do these health talks. If you ask me, the number one organ we should all focus on, and this is irrespective whether we are trying to get pregnant or not, it's everybody at your home, is liver. We're all worried about the heart because we only think of heart attacks and the fact that we can die. But for everyday functioning, the liver is the numero uno. So please focus on the liver. Does eating meat increase endometriosis or inflammation? Any food, and it's not just meat, can be medicine or can be poison. Meat, when it is poor quality meat, when it has been sitting for too long, because it can grow bacteria on it, when it is not hormone free, because a lot of meat today we have no idea is good quality or not, can trigger inflammation in the body and endometriosis. And so long as you are assured of the quality of your meat, so long as you know that you have the enzymes to digest meat, because meat is protein and protein requires certain enzymes to digest it, like a protease, there is absolutely no issue, because good quality meat can be fantastic in providing great quality protein for the body. I know we're hitting 12:30. I know that, there are a lot of questions. So I'm okay. Please, you can unmute yourself and talk. I'm okay talking. If you are, running late for some other engagement or appointment or lunch, you can exit. We'll send you the recording. Let me know if you want me to continue, and I will answer the rest of the questions. Okay, so we will try and go up for another 5 minutes because there are a lot of questions here. Will hot yoga, power yoga affect conception? Hot yoga will not affect, or power yoga will not affect conception. However, I have done a post recently saying, or rather, maybe I'm doing it a little later, sperm health. For your man, standing for too long under hot showers can affect sperm health, because the man's testes need to be at 2 or 3 degrees lower than the rest of his body. So never subject the gonads of a male into high temperature. That needs to be cool, and that's where there's an issue of heat. How do I avoid frequent UTIs? Okay, and how do you prevent? I'm smiling because I suffered from a UTI infection just last week. The UTI happens because the body turns to acidic, either because of stress or because of the wrong kinds of food that we eat, which includes coffee, tea, alcohol, fruit juices. It also turns acidic when the body is subjected to too much stress or too little sleep, or when you're not taking adequate water. And that was a problem I faced. I dropped my water intake for some reason that day, and I was I drank 2 cups of coffee because I was trying to stay awake for something, and boom, the UTI hit. So to prevent UTI or frequent UTIs, the body needs to be in an alkaline state. So all that I told you right now, you need to avoid. I need to hydrate. That's the way to avoid UTI. B12 sources for a vegan, I would say is, you can eat green leafy vegetables. They do contain B vitamins. However, if your B vitamin is very low, then I would advise that you supplement them. Okay. How to find whether a period is ovulatory or anovulatory? Great question. Ovulation tracking can be done by one of 2 ways. Number one, there is a 0.5 degree rise in body temperature when you ovulate. So you can use a basal body thermometer. It has to be digital. It cannot be an analog thermometer to track the body temperature. And around ovulation, when you see, and you have to do it every morning through the month. So I know it's a little hard, but that's a very accurate way to predict. That will tell you if the temperature rises around ovulation, which is usually day 12 to day 14, ovulating. Second, there are ovulation predictor kits, which are available on Amazon or in the market. You can buy them. You just have to pee on them, and that will tell you whether you're ovulating or not. The third is a progesterone test, which we usually ask to be done 7 days before your next period. And the trend of the progesterone number will tell me whether you're ovulating or not. Okay. Best way to reduce heat while planning. So best way to reduce heat is to eat foods that are more alkaline in nature. Vegetables are a great way to bring down overall heat in the body. And I prefer cooked or lightly sauteed vegetables. Why? Not that raw vegetables are bad. Raw vegetables are fine, but many of us don't have the required gut health to digest raw vegetables. So to raw, you have to either, you add coconut, you add fats, you can add lemon, see if it works for you. But if you face bloating or gas, avoid raw, lightly saute them, literally like 1 minute or 2 minutes, and avoid raw at night. Okay. So to reduce heat, as I said, vegetables are great. Dals, the smaller the dal, the easier they are to eat. The larger the dal, although they are good, can cause, vata or, or the body, the pitta buildup in the body. So you may not be able to digest chana and rajma. in which case all dals, including chana and rajma, have to be soaked at least for 12 hours, rinsed thoroughly, and then cooked. So eat foods that are, so rice is fine, dals are fine, vegetables are fine. Anything, as I said, that is alcohol, tea, coffee are likely to, or late eating, or eating and sleeping literally within an hour of eating, not doing those 100 steps after the meal will all make the body more heaty or acidic. Okay. Is it correct to avoid non-veg post-ovulation? It's a myth. Okay. Why is somebody telling you to avoid non-veg or is non-veg? Is only because of that same thing, that meat, yes, can put a strain on the body. Ayurveda calls it heat causing. Modern nutrition will say that inability to digest. Digestion of meat requires proteins. Indians in general are not good with digesting proteins because historically, even as non-vegetarians, we've eaten normally as a side dish. We've never eaten it as a main course. So when somebody joins the Sepalika fertility program, along with increasing their protein, which we will do, we will give them digestive enzymes or foods which will help you digest the protein. Otherwise, you will end up causing problems. That reminds me, somebody had asked a question on leaky gut. Why does, and what do I do? What can you do? Leaky gut usually is caused by, is because of either foods that you're eating which you're not able to tolerate, so they remain undigested and left in the body. It is caused by eating too many carbohydrates and too much gluten, which sort of wears off the tight junction between your intestinal wall and your bloodstream. So what happens is once you eat food through the stomach into the small intestine, gets digested, the food will go through the wall of the small intestine into the blood. The unwanted stuff goes into your large intestine to exit as feces. Now, until digestion is complete and food has been reduced to a bare micro size,
last में इसका link आएगा, हाँ, video का वो download कर.
So unless can we mute yourself? I mean, ma'am, who was talking, can you please mute yourself? Or Ginny, can you mute the team, please? Okay. And if the food is not being fully digested and it breaks through this wall, it will get into your bloodstream. The body will think it's an enemy or a pathogen and it will attack it. That's a leaky gut. So to improve that gut lining, you have to first look at what are the foods you're sensitive to. A lot of people, and we don't even realize it, we're sensitive to dairy, we're sensitive to gluten, and there are inflammatory foods like sugar or maida or the 4 whites I mentioned. So that can cause leaky gut. You need to cut down on them. Then you need to add certain nutrients to repair this. Literally like a hole has happened. You have to repair it and bind it. So we use certain nutrients to seal that, like magnesium, like B vitamins. And then teach the body to strengthen that wall. So it's all diet-led, it's all nutrient-led, and you can heal your leaky gut. Does wearing tight jeans and clothes affect reproductive health for men? Tight jeans for men is terrible because, again, for the same reason, the gonads of a man have to be at a temperature lower than the rest of his body to produce sperm. If that doesn't happen, tight jeans and tight underwear both will cause a sperm production and a sperm quality issue. Okay, not so much for women, but why would you wear it if it's being, if it's making you uncomfortable, right? Excessive hair, abdominal area, yes. It is a sign, it may not be a sign of PCOD. See, PCOD is a very weird thing. It's somebody's created this definition that you meet certain criteria. Excessive hair on the abdomen, on the chest, on the face and body is a sign of a hormonal imbalance. It's a sign of excess androgens or male hormones. They have to be addressed. Dark spots, usually underarms, behind the neck, again, called acanthosis nigricans, again, is a sign, or is a PCOD symptom, which a lot of people are not aware of. So yes, they have to be addressed. You have to work towards balancing the hormones. All right, guys, it's 12:38. Thank you so much. I know I've taken a lot of my time, but I hope it's been useful. We will be sending you out the recording of this session. Thank you very much for attending. Bye-bye and have a wonderful weekend.